we can move forward with convening the meeting.
Great. Thank you, Christina. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the July 20th, 2023 TCC or Technical Coordinating Committee meeting of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority. We will now convene the meeting at 2:32 p.m. Right now, please give your attention to this short video.
Christina, we can't hear it. Can you unmute?
Say that again, Hisham.
We cannot hear it.
Oh, okay.
Can you unmute your phone? Yeah.
Sorry, let me try again. Hold on, I think I need this. Sorry, the video disappeared on me, so I'm gonna have to dig it up real quick.
No problem. Thank you.
I think it's because I'm still sharing. Okay, it's coming.
Due to COVID-19, this meeting will be conducted as a Zoom meeting pursuant to the provisions of Assembly Bill 361, which suspends certain requirements of the Brown Act. This meeting is being live streamed on the CCTA website. The chair will call upon members, staff, and other speakers by name. Please speak clearly and state your name before giving comments or remarks. Persons participating via Zoom with their cameras enabled are reminded that their activities are visible to viewers. Members participating by Zoom wishing to speak should physically raise their hand and unmute their mic when called upon. Members should mute their mics when done speaking. Citizens participating by Zoom wishing to speak should use the Raise Hand feature or dial *9 if participating via phone, and the chair or staff will call upon them at the appropriate time. Citizens will have 3 minutes to speak. After 3 minutes, staff will lower their hand and mute their mic. Participants via phone will be called upon by the last 4 digits of their phone number. It is requested that public speakers state their names and organization, but providing such information is voluntary. Written public comments received in accordance with the teleconferencing special notice for public comment guidelines are printed on the meeting agenda. If authors of the written correspondence would like to speak, they should raise their hand and the chair will call upon them at the appropriate time. All written correspondence received after that and during the meeting will be entered into the record. A roll call vote will be taken for all action items. Thank you for participating in a meeting of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority.
Thank you very much for that. Christina, would you also please now call the roll?
Yes, Member Armio? Member Ballinger? Member Boardman?
Present.
Member Chen?
Present.
Member Conradi?
Here.
Member Diaz?
Present.
Member Dillard?
Here.
Member Dew? Member Fahey? Member Greenblatt?
Here.
Member Kursavan?
Present.
Member Knapp, Member Nelson, Member Panganiban, Member Reeves,
Here.
Member Awani, Member Saravana, Member Thompson, Member Weeks,
Here.
ex officio Singh, ex officio Wang, and Chair Stamps.
Present. Thank you.
Do we happen to have any alternates filling in for anybody?
Ken Chang from City of Richmond, as on behalf of Robert Armijo.
Okay. Thank you, Ken. Are you an appointed alternate? I just want to double check.
I'm just filling on his behalf.
Okay. We only have 10 members unless we have another alternate here who's appointed.
So I think we can still carry on with the agenda though, right? Except for the action items, we may have to hope that somebody comes on in the meantime.
Mhm.
Okay. And I think after public comment, the first item is, well, the consent calendar technically is an action item, but CTPL, or no, the STIP item is an action item. Well, okay, well, let's carry on and see if someone comes along before the end of the meeting, because we do that consolidated motion and approval at the end anyway. So hopefully we can get lucky. So we'll go ahead and move on. Thank you, Christina, for the roll to public comment. Which is the next item on the agenda. Christina, do we have, or have we received any written or remote public comment?
I've received no written or public comment.
Great. Thank you very much. Is there anyone wishing to speak during public comment on an item that is not a part of this agenda? If so, please raise your virtual hand and staff or I will call on you. Christina, do we have any written or remote public comment?
No written or remote public comment.
Okay, thank you. I think I might have asked that already. Sorry. So that concludes public comment. We'll go ahead and move on to the consent calendar. This is an action item, but I think we can still get information on this from the committee members if any exists. So I'll go ahead and go through it. But from the committee members, are there any changes or comments from the committee on the consent calendar? Or does anyone want to pull an item? If there's anyone wishing to speak during public comment on an item that's not a part of the agenda, you can go ahead and raise a virtual hand and we'll call on you. So first off, are there any committee members that have any changes or comments on the consent calendar, or anyone that wants to pull an item? I don't think I see any hands. Christina, do you?
I see no hands.
Okay, and since we have no members of the public, I'll assume that there are no public comment on the consent calendar.
No public comment or written comment.
Okay, great, thank you. So we'll move past that item and go into regular agenda items. The first item on the agenda is an action item presented by Stephanie Hugh to recommend approval of the State Transportation Program Subcommittee's recommendations. Stephanie, I think you're here. I thought I saw you. If you are, would you go ahead and take the floor, please?
Mr. Chair, Stephanie is actually on vacation, so I'm in for her. This is Hisham Raimi. I'm the Director of Programming at CCTA. Good afternoon, everyone. In regard to the STIP, as you recall, the authority approved the issuance for the call for projects back in April of this year. And the applications were due in March. We received 4 applications requesting a total of $40.3 million in STIP funds. The applications came from three agencies. Pleasant Hill had 2 projects submitted. The county had 1, and the town of Moraga had another 1. A subcommittee of 9 members of the TCC actually met on June 22nd to review the application and score them. I want to thank them for their time. We have Andy, Chris, and Andy Smith, Chris, and I saw somebody else from the committee here today, Jason Chin. Thank you for your time and review of the application. They did actually spend the day on the 22nd reviewing the 4 applications in detail, and they did come up with a ranked list, which I will share with you, and it's also should be included in your packet. The criteria they used is what you recommended to the board and what the board approved when they issued the call for projects, so no changes there. And what you see here, I hope you can see my screen, are the 4 projects in ranked order and their funding requests totaling the 40.3 million, as well as their scores. There's unfortunately a late breaking news as of yesterday. We received a revised draft fund estimate from the CTC that took into consideration the actions by the CTC at their June meeting. And unfortunately, the fund estimate, the funding available to projects went down by $3.3 million. So instead of the 13.8 that you see in the staff report now, it's actually 10.5 million, which will allow us basically to fund the top project. It's about $10 million. The remainder, about $500,000, just too small to fund any of the remaining projects. Even though Pleasant Hill initially told us, they could manage with 3.5 or 3.8 million, but $500,000 is just too little to be able to make up the difference and continue to fully fund the project. Having said that, this is still a draft fund estimate. I mean, the CTC, it could still change. The CTC will adopt the final fund estimate for the 2024 STIP at their August meeting, which I believe it's in mid-August. So if for any reason the number goes back up, we'll definitely touch base again with Pleasant Hill, the number 2 project on this list, to see if they're able to use that funds. If they cannot, or the number doesn't change, then we'll have to leave that money in reserve until basically the next STIP cycle. On the side, we are trying to see if MTC is willing to advance us future STIP money. At this point, they told us they couldn't, but if anything changes, we'll definitely be in touch with the city of Pleasant Hill to let them know. So that's the recommendation, is basically to fund the top project on this list. And what we're asking you today is basically to approve the project ranking, and we'll draw the line of what to fund when the final fund estimate comes out, and which is before when we go to the board, which we're planning to go to APC in September with the final approval of this. I'll be happy to answer any questions, and we have several members of the subcommittee that reviewed these applications who will also be probably willing to answer any questions. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Hisham. And thank you to the members of the TCC who served on the committee. Are there any comments from committee members?
I see no hands raised.
All right. Thank you very much, Christina. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item? If so, please raise your virtual hand. Christina, at this point, do you see anyone with their hand up from the public, or have we received any written or remote public comment?
No, we've received no written or public comment, and I do not see any hands raised from the public.
Okay. Thank you very much. And I haven't been watching, but do we still not have a quorum?
I believe,
Hang on 1 second.
is there anybody else that may have shown up
Christina, this is
Yeah.
Shalia from BART. I'm standing in for Celestine. But you asked for, is there an official alternate or do we need to register that?
Yeah, you need to be appointed and do the oath of office and all of that.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, I'm here listening for Celestine because she's out today.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thanks.
Is there anybody else by chance?
Christina Arlington from Pleasant Hill is here as well.
Oh, perfect. So with Anathan here, we do have enough members for a quorum.
Okay, excellent. If it's okay with the committee members, why don't we go ahead and take an action on the item that was just presented, and then we can go back and take an action on the consent calendar. If there's no objection to that, could I please get a motion on the recommendation for the 2024 State Transportation Improvement Program projects, candidate projects?
Don't we usually vote
I'll
for everything
motion.
at one time in the end?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, okay. I did say that before, so we do still do that. My apologies. I'm messing it up.
You're fine.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. We'll move on then to item B, which is the update to the comprehensive transportation project list by project sponsors. And it looks like Matt Kelly, you're up on this one. I do know that Matt's here because I could see you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Stamps. Good afternoon, TCC members and guests. Matt Kelly with CCTA. So most of you who've been around for more than 2 years or so are probably familiar with our CTPL, or Comprehensive Transportation Project List. It's basically a database of 1,200 some odd projects that date back to the very beginnings of Measure J and even Measure C. And basically, we've opened it up over the years to allow project sponsors to add their projects to the database or update the database. So it's full of projects that at one time or another were supported by a local sponsor. There are 1,200 active projects out there today. But all projects are in the database, regardless of their status, whether they are completed in the planning phase or, like I mentioned, no longer supported. There are projects that, maybe an agency supported 15 years ago, and today they've moved beyond that project. Those projects are still in the CTPL, which is one of the things I'll get to in a minute in terms of updating. But we use the CTPL for a variety of reasons. And I came to you back in, I think, January for the work plan for the 2023 Congestion Management Program, which is something CCTA is required to prepare every 2 years under state legislation. And as part of that, we have a capital improvement program. That's one of the requirements of the CMP. So we generally open up the CTPL for editing every 2 years for that effort. And I probably wouldn't have come back to you today on just for that, because I'd already briefed you on that as part of the work plan. However, because we've got some other things that have kind of emerged in the meantime, we thought we would have kind of a multi-pronged approach for the CTPL update. So not only will it inform the CMP capital improvement program, but we are hoping to have it inform the countywide transportation plan, which most of you know is underway, and you'll be briefed on the scope of that by John in a few minutes, as well as the 2026 regional transportation plan that MTC is just getting going on. One of the first tasks for their update of Plan Bay Area 2050. In case you haven't heard, it's a technical kind of a minor update, and they're referring to it as Plan Bay Area 2050 plus. So they have reached out to us to provide updates to our project list that we provide them. That is a recent request. So we figured we would approach this update of the CTPL with to inform the CMP, the CTP, and the RTP. And if that wasn't enough acronyms for you, I don't know what to type. What we plan on doing is, so right now we're in the process of getting our database kind of ready to go. And those of you who've been involved in these call for projects for more than the last couple of years probably know we've done it a variety of ways over the years. We used to have a really cool website that you would just enter your stuff in and it would populate our access database. We lost the guy who did that website. He retired and we no longer have that. Last time we used an online database called Caspio, and we've also done it in the past with just having you fill out Excel spreadsheets. So that is still to be determined. We're figuring that out now. But what I wanted to come here today to do is basically to let you know that we will be reaching out to your single point of contact over the next month. Each agency has a single point of contact that we are supposed to use for anything like this, where we're reaching out for project specific information or calls for project, where we don't want it to go to 1 million people. We want it to go to a dedicated person. I'm certainly open to copying others, and I can take names today if folks in here want to be copied or want someone else to be copied. But all of our CTPL correspondence will go to your single point of contact. So like I said, we'll be contacting them with instructions for how to update your projects. You'll basically be given access to just your agency's projects, regardless of the status. And we'll be asking you to update anything regarding, kind of the general scope or project description. Certainly the cost. We have a lot of really old costs in there. We have a lot of really old cost years in there. So a cost may have been updated, but it still says it's like a 2013 cost year. So if you can align those with 2023 or something more recent, that would be great. If you can update the status, and status is, is it in environmental? Is it in planning? Is it in construction? Is it, and very important, is it completed, or is it no longer supported? Because if it's marked anything like planning, PS&E, right-of-way, construction, we are going to include it in some of these project lists accidentally, because it meets all the criteria and it has an active status. So please go through your projects. The only people I feel really sorry for is the county, because they have hundreds of projects. Everybody else has a few dozen, maybe give or take a few dozen. So just take a look, make sure your projects are still active. And if you need to combine multiple projects together, that's great. The county actually did a total overhaul of their project list last time, which was actually helpful. They cleaned it up a lot. So they actually will probably have less work this time around. But others, I really encourage you to clean those up. Like for the Pleasant Hill STIP project, these projects for some of these documents, like the STIP, have to be in the CMP. So we found like 2 individual projects for Pleasant Hill that made up their STIP description. So if you see projects like that that at one time were multiple projects, but now have been combined into one project, please create a new entry, delete the old ones and mark them as no longer supported. Just really help us clean up the database is what we're looking for, and then add new projects. If you've got a new capital project that you're going to be seeking funding, over the next 5 to 10 years, it really should be in the CTPL. We don't want your entire CIP. We want kind of discrete capital projects. You can certainly put in like a paving like the year 2024 paving program for $1 million, but not paving, 2 blocks of Main Street. That's kind of part of your CIP. That isn't part of our CIP. You should roll those projects up into something bigger. So that's why I'm here. Like I said, in the next few weeks, we expect to get all those instructions, and in whatever format we end up using, out to your single point of contact. And like I said, if you're probably the person that's going to be working on that project list and you want to be copied, let me know, and I can include you on the copy. And that's really all I have. But I'd be glad to take any questions on either, either of those 3 efforts that will be informed by the CTPL or the CTPL itself. So yeah, I'm open to any questions.
Great, thank you very much, Matt. Are there any committee members who have a question or comment for Matt on the update to the CTPL?
I see no hands raised.
Thank you very much, Christina. In the meantime, if there are any members of the public that have arrived that heard this item and have any questions or comments, please raise your virtual hand and Christina or I will call on you. But until we get to that, Christina, were there any members of the public that provided any written or remote public comment?
We've received no written or remote public comment.
All right, thank you very much. I have one very nitpicky, kind of annoying procedural question for you, Matt. The action, well, does the TCC need to take an action on this item? This sounds like you're just letting us know that this process, we're getting ready to embark on this process. We're not actually approving the CTPL, or am I mistaken? Is there something that I'm missing?
Right. So you basically approved this as part of the CMP work plan back in, I think it was January.
Right.
We've just kind of expanded the scope of it. So that's what I wanted to inform you about. So it really is informational. We're going to do the call for projects, or to open up the CTPL. We just wanted to inform this committee on how it was its kind of role was growing, but it shouldn't change what you're going to actually put in the CTPL. We want the CTPL updated. We just are going to be using it for more things this time around.
Okay, great. Thank you for that clarification. So at the end, when I read off the bundle of action items for approval, I can leave this out, it sounds like.
Yeah, and you will be approving the changes to the CTPL as part of the CMP.
But that comes later.
That comes later this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks very much for that clarification, Matt. I think Leah, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I don't know if I missed it, but do you have a sense of what the time frame is going to be for us to update the document?
Yeah, we're going to try and give you about 6 weeks. The CMP has a tighter time frame. So, I would, and we need to get the draft CMP out in the fall. However, and the CTP and the RTP, I think we'll need to have those probably in the fall timeframe as well. Yeah, but we'll give you at least 5 to 6 weeks to update.
Okay, great. Any other committee members with questions or comments for Matt on this item or items related to this that he mentioned? I don't see any hands, Christina, unless I'm got a blind spot.
See no hands.
Okay, great. Thank you. With that, we'll go ahead and move on then to our third and final action or item under the non-consent calendar. I forgot what it's called. Anyway, review of the draft overall work program or OWP for the Countywide Transportation Plan 2050 or CTP 2050. And that looks like it's going to be presented by John Huang. I think I saw, there you are, John. Okay. All yours, sir.
Good afternoon, Chair Stamps and committee members. John Huang, Director of Planning for CCTA. I do have a short presentation, which I will share right now. If somebody would let me share.
You should be good.
Thanks, Christina.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we're starting to work on the countywide transmission plan update. We're calling it 2050, and before that, we're developing an overall. We have developed a draft overall work program, which I will be presenting this afternoon. So the last time the CTP was updated, a lot of you were around, was in 2017, and it's been about 7-8 years now. So it's about time to update it again, and per MTC's guidelines, they had recommended that the CTP gets updated also. And it's good timing because by the time we complete this, it will be 25 years until 2050. So we're looking at completing this CTP anyways by the beginning of 2025. But I'm jumping ahead of myself. The overall work program, forward. Here we go. Okay, so we came up with this tagline, I guess, planning for tomorrow's transportation. We came up with that as we were doing the planning for the CTP and so forth. So I think we're, and unless things change, we're going to continue to kind of follow that description of we are really planning for tomorrow's transportation. Today, I'll go over just real briefly what the content of the OWP, our schedule, and we really listen to you all because you will be a part of the process of providing feedback into the CTP. As you know, let me take a step back. As you know, back in April, all the RTPCs did recommend approval of their respective action plans. And we brought that to our board in April for receiving those action plans. And the purpose of receiving that is to eventually fold it into the final CTP when that is completed. A lot of the work in the action plans, it really involved a lot of your efforts, the city's efforts, transit agencies, and the RTPCs. So we want to leverage all the information and recommendations and performance measures, RTOs, regional transformation objectives to feed up into the CTP process. Some of the key performance indices, index or RTOs from the action plans are listed there. I'm not going to go through everything, but each action plans has different RTOs, but there's a whole bunch more than what is shown here. And we really want to optimize the utilization of those, and understanding that there was a lot of local focus when the action plans were developed, but it all revolved around routes of regional significance. At the CTP level, we'll be looking at more of a regional wide plan, but also focusing around the regional routes of significance. We're right in phase one. We're anticipating the whole process from beginning to end to take about 18 months. Right now, we're in phase one. Some of the key elements in phase one include just basically scoping out the project itself, identifying what the vision and goals are, developing policy papers. I'll go into that a little bit later on in the presentation, and also putting together an engagement plan. This committee has a big role in the engagement plan, as I alluded to earlier. And also we will need to do an environmental impact report as typical. Again, we're the only county that does it, and I couldn't get out of doing it because I was told if you did it before, you have to continue to do it, or else people are going to ask, why did you stop doing it? Anyway, this is the stakeholders input structure that we've come up with. As you see, the technical community coordinating committees is part of the CCTA committee structure. In addition to that, we have a stakeholders advisory group consisting of or non-government organizations, advocates, other agencies, community-based organizations, and just folks who are interested in transportation planning, land use, and growth management process. And also a huge part of this whole effort will be getting information from the public. I listed there the summer outreach events. So it's just the beginning of the public outreach, and I'll go to into those a little bit further in the slide presentation. We've created a CTP task force. We're going to ask each RTPC to have each manager participate plus one member from the committee. We'll also include representatives from Transit and BART as well as MTC. And everything trickles up to the planning committee and ultimately the board. These are some of the stakeholders group that I kind of mentioned from the past slides. In addition to what I mentioned, also business community and the labor community, labor organizations will be important throughout this process and getting their feedback. So public outreach, we're leveraging the current efforts for studies that we're doing now, including the Vision 4, Highway 4 visioning, and other projects such as the ITP Integrated Transportation Plan that Ying is leading, and other programs that we have in place, including Innovate 680 and others. And in addition to that, we're looking at holding specific outreach. This needs to be vetted and developed in more detail. We're having a director of external affairs coming on board soon, and we'll put that plan together, and we'll certainly share it as we have it available. And all these inputs are really guiding the CTP task force, and ultimately up to the board, authority board. You may or may not know, we have what we call a summer event series that we make a point, CCTA make a point of going to each jurisdiction in the county, and it's going to go through October. We've hit, I think, Pinole, Hercules, and Pittsburgh already, and the rest of it is shown there. 2 of the CCTA staff will be out at each event. This event, these public outreach events, really barely touching the surface of our public outreach efforts. Besides the CTP, we will be presenting other programs and projects that CCTA is currently working on. I mentioned earlier in phase 1 is the writing of the policy papers. So we've identified 10 policy papers. Each we've assigned to consultants that are on our on-call bench. And some papers may be more intricate, more involved than others, but they're all really will fold together and provide us some guidance as we're developing the CTP itself. We're looking at what's going to happen to, for instance, transit or active transportation 25 years from now to 2050. So that's what we've tasked the consultants to write about is, what's the landscape of of transportation Contra Costa will look like. And again, a lot of you were around when we did the same exercise of the CTPs 2017, and probably the one prior to that too. So this one we're looking further ahead to 2050. One of the more or most important aspect of the CTP, I think, is to really develop what the vision, what is CCTA's vision of transportation. We are going to glean from the action plan's output. We receive your input, we receive other inputs from other committees, and mostly importantly, the board really have to craft it. Last year, some of you participated in the board retreat where we can introduce CCTA 4.0 in the future, where CCTA is going. We'll have the same event this year, but it's more really focused on the authority board and not open to others, staff from the jurisdictions. So by that meeting, we'll have the policy papers written and we'll vet it through the board and hopefully come up with some guidance going forward as we start developing the CTP. These proposed goals were from the last transportation expenditure plans in 2020. And I just want to share this because it's a starting point. I'm sure collectively the board and others can come up with refined goals to reflect the changing landscape since 2020, which is not too long ago. These have been vetted, from what I understand, and vetted a lot extensively. So I would anticipate this would be a good starting point. Overall schedule show in a more traditional way. We're in phase 1 right now. And if everything goes well, we'll get a consultant on board to start the EAR process, and we'll have a draft ready by the end of 24 with ultimate board adoption beginning of 25. These are some of the questions that we're looking to receive. Do we need any additional items to consider for the overall work program? Keep in mind that this program is a living document and we can enhance it and modify it as we need to, as we're going along the process. And certainly want to hear about ideas for outreach. Can I toss out there, in addition to the some of the ideas we have, we may need to attend different council meetings and go to the Board of Supervisors meeting and present the CTP progress as we're moving along. That's another opportunity for public outreach, and then always looking for receiving input into the process. That concludes my presentation. And again, this is an informational item. As I mentioned, this committee will be closely involved with the process and during the next year and a half. And I'll be glad to receive any inputs or comments you may have today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John, for that presentation. Are there any comments from the committee members or questions? Leah, you have your hand up?
I do. Let me unmute myself and get ready. So thanks, John. This was really helpful. I appreciated getting the draft overall work program in the packet. I got a chance to read that and I had a few questions. So I have like the page number from the packet and the page number from the OWP. So do you have a preference for which page I should use?
No.
Okay, so maybe it's easier for people following along with the packet then. On page 71 of the packet, it talks about the CTP task force. And let's see. And make it so I can see it better on my laptop here. So, and then, so it talks about, you know, the representatives, and then it says from time to time at key milestones, staff will provide updates to TCC and the RTPCs. And I just wanted to clarify, I would recommend having it be the RTPC tax as well as the boards for those, because, you know, there's not representation everywhere. So I would just build that into the schedule.
Yeah, that's a lot. Thanks for that point. That's a lot of meetings. I just want to kind of just mention it up front. That's 5 tax and 5 board meetings, right? Trying to integrate into all the other meetings that we have. So I just want to, I'll take it back to the group, the team, and consider that. I know internally we had discussed the formation and the avenue to receive input. But there is that's a lot of meetings. I just want to mention that. And then we do have I mentioned the task force, right? Whatever that
Right. And
so there's
the task
representatives
force,
there.
yeah, there's some, but you've got you know, it's the managers that are on the task force, and then you have one rep from each, you know, one additional like staff representative on the task force. So, you know, if that person doesn't communicate, or, you know, if those two aren't that knowledgeable about certain city issues, it just seemed like a good check-in. And it was only, you know, you said, you know, what kind of key milestones you were going to bring it to the RTPCs.
Okay, I'll take it into consideration. Right now, we thought that one representative from the RTPCs and the manager was sufficient, and it was the responsibility for those representatives to report back to the RTPCs.
Right, I understand. And just, you know, one thing some TACs do, they're kind of the clearinghouse for what goes to their boards. So that's why I was recommending bringing it to the TACs.
Okay, point noted. Thank you.
Okay, so then my next comment, I only have 4 comments.
Only 4?
Yeah, how about that? Is on page 76, or sorry, 75, where it's talking about the visions, goals, and strategies. And in the description, and I'll just say, like, I'm not seeing where the public and elected officials are included in the process of developing the visions and goals, because it refers to the CCTA staff and consultant doing that work.
What page are you? I'm sorry, what page are you?
I'm on page 75 of the packet, or it's page 13 of that paper.
Okay. Vision goals. In what program?
So I'm just saying, in the process here, it says the establishment of the goal, vision and goals will be led by authority staff with support from the consultant. But it doesn't explain how the public and elected officials will be included in the process of developing those visions and goals.
Okay, ultimately, I think I mentioned in my presentation, ultimately, the authority board will be crafting the language for the vision and coming with the goals. So once that is done, then it'll be vetted through the respective.
But in your process, you know, you got those round wheels. I think it's kind of good practice if you can have the public provide some input into the development of those of that vision and goals. So it just,
Well, that's why we get, so again, it is a multifaceted process, right? Because staff, CCT staff, we'll be receiving input from the public, and we will.
right. So
help
you might want to
craft the
change the
language.
wording of this then, John.
Okay,
because
if you hung up on the wording, I can certainly change it.
Yeah, because the second paragraph says that the CCTA and staff will consider a number of factors, including but not limited to blah, 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 blah. But I think you want to make that paragraph sound like it's a more inclusive process than.
Okay, yeah, that's easy to do. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, then moving on to page 76. And this has to do with the policy papers. I am concerned that the equity policy paper is a standalone paper, and I'd like to see the topic of equity incorporated in as many of these topics as are applicable, so that it's not a standalone thing. It's fully integrated in the development of the plan. So like within public transit, there could be a discussion about equity, and within active transportation, there's a discussion about equity. And you know, you can kind of work your way through all of these things, but I think that makes equity more fully incorporated into the whole document.
Okay, thanks for bringing that up. And equity, actually, if you look at all the topics, they're all interrelated, right? So in public transportation, in public transit, there's going to be safety involved. There's going to be equity involved. In active transportation, there's going to be safety involved. That's going to be coalesced together. So there's coordination between these papers, even though we've parsed out the topics this way, but the authors, we've met with the authors, explain what the expectation is. And as you well pointed out right now, all the topics are interrelated. So that there's not a topic that's siloed. So it's written, whoever is going to be writing the equity paper is going to be considering everything else too. So at the end of the day, these policy papers will work together, not as individual papers.
Yeah, I still would prefer to see it throughout, because I think that it's a topic that's too easily siloed, and I think that as you do the analysis of some of these specific topics like public transit or active transportation, there's, you know, that equity person needs to be on that team, so that those equity questions can be analyzed.
Again, I understand what you're getting at, but I think we have a strategy to work out and coalesce these policy papers, and certainly make note of that and make sure that all the topics work together, and equity. And again, I'm repeating myself, equity crosses all topics.
Yeah. Then on the policy paper number 3, roadways and vehicles. I just want to point out for, it does mention maintenance, but in West County, there's interest in, with the Richmond Parkway about that being a region, it functions as a regional facility, but it really only has local dollars to maintain it. And that's a ongoing issue that in West County is pretty important to include. So just wanted to point that out to you.
Okay, we'll make sure that that the Richmond Parkway will be considered.
Yeah, we're trying to find, as part of the work that we're doing now, we're part of the work will also be looking at strategies for what could be done to provide more maintenance dollars for that regional facility. So we might be a little ahead of you and be able to push some information your way when you get there. And then my last comment is on page 82. Let's see. Phase 3 of the draft CTP. And again, this is where I wouldn't rely solely on the CTP task force for the RTPC perspective. I think it's important to bring a draft to both the RTPC TAC and the boards.
Okay, point noted. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Leah. Are there any other committee members with comments or questions for John?
I see no hands raised.
Great. Thank you, Christina. We'll go ahead and move on to public comment for this item. If anyone from the public is here and wish to speak on this item, please raise your virtual hand. Other than that, Christina, have we received any written or virtual or remote public comment on this item?
I see no hands raised, and we have not received any written, remote, or public comment.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. That wraps up items on the regular agenda. So before we go on to other business, I will ask the committee members for a motion to approve. Well, Christina, should we do the consent calendar as one and then regular agenda items as another motion, or could we do it all? I'm sorry, I should know this, but is it all one sweeping motion for all of
It's one motion for all of the action items.
Okay, thank you. Could I get a committee member to make a motion to approve the consent calendar, which would be items 3A through D, and item 4A, the 2024 STIP candidate projects?
Well, this is Chris Weeks from San Ramon and SWAT. I just have a quick question. It just, I noticed that for the for A, the technical coordinating summary of actions, it was listed me as not present for that meeting, and I was present at that meeting. So with that change, I would like to make a motion to approve those items.
Thank you very much, Chris. Member Weeks made the motion. Is there a second? A motion with that amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
That is Member
Boardman.
Thank you very much. So it's been moved by Member Weeks with an amendment to the minutes and properly seconded by Member Boardman. Christina, could you go ahead and take the roll, please?
Yes. Member Boardman.
Yes.
Member Chen.
Yes.
Member Conradi.
Yes.
Member Diaz.
Yes.
Member Dillard.
Yes.
Member Du. Member Greenblatt.
Yes.
Member Cursivan.
Yes.
Member Reeves.
Yes.
Member Anathan,
Yes.
Member Weeks,
Yes.
and Chair Stamps.
Yes,
Okay, let me just count these really quick.
thank you.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously with the members present.
Great, thank you very much, Christina. We'll go ahead and move on to item 5, which is other business. There's nothing listed on the agenda, but do any committee members have anything they would like to provide for other business? I don't see any hands, no mics coming off. So we'll go ahead and move to adjournment. The next regular meeting for the TCC is scheduled for September 21st, 2023 at 2:30 p.m. And we'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting at 3:33. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, Christina. You too.